at 6. CBS 47 Fox 30 Action News Jax begins with breaking news.
That breaking news, minutes ago, a judge ruled that the defense in the trial of the 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery did not get rid of jurors solely based on race. You're looking live inside the courtroom right now. Now, earlier today, the defense struck 11 of the 12 black potential jurors. I'm Tanika Hughes.
I'm John Bachman. The state argued that 8 of those strikes were made solely based because of race. But again, the judge just decided there is not enough evidence to prove that. So where does that leave us now? There was a pool of 48 potential jurors. That pool consisted of 12 black people, 36 white people, as you can see on your screen right here. After both the state and defense questioned that group, they picked people to eliminate. The defense cut 11 out of the 12 potential black jurors, as we mentioned. That means right now the seated jury will consist of 11 white people and 1 black person. Now, Action News Jax has team coverage tonight. Our law and safety expert is in the studio to break down what happened in court today. But we begin with Action News Jax' Kristen Rary live in Brunswick. And Kristen, it looks like this is the jury that will hear this case.
Yeah, that decision was made by the judge in just the last 10 minutes. He came back from a recess and gave a few statements, basically breaking down what he thought. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what happened in the last few hours. So basically, when they decided to make these strikes or these cuts to the 48 they had chosen, they decided to bring back 8. And the state said that 8 people had been cut solely based on race. Now, then they then brought up each of these 8 potential jury members and discussed why they had been cut. And the defense had to then come and give a race-neutral reason for why they were cut. And then the judge went and debated. And I'm going to read to you one of the things he said when he came back. He said, "There appears to be intentional discrimination found. That's prima facie case. As we get into one of these challenges that I think counsel recognizes are the racial overtones in this case." But he did say in the end there just was not sufficient evidence to consider reseating any of those 8. And so the 11 white people and 1 black person will be what stands as the jury in this case. Now, to give an example of some of the racial neutral reasons that the defense gave, this is what they said of one woman.
For those reasons that were race neutral, having to do with the strong feelings that this juror had and the emotional and personal connection that this juror felt to the event and her own situation at home with her children.
Now, as for what's happening inside the courtroom right now, they're going over what they believe the schedule will be for the rest of the trial, and they're deciding when opening statements will be made, and they're also laying out what they need to do with these jury members now that they have been sat, and they will be sequestered until the trial ends.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Now, Action News Jax law and safety expert Dale Carson joins us here to continue our team coverage. Dale, a big question that a lot of people might not know. Obviously, you're an attorney. Do you have to pick a jury based on race? Is that a process that is illegal if you have a jury that seems to be skewed on one race or the other?
No. A jury is selected based on its fairness. And so race doesn't really enter into the matter. The problem in this particular matter is that the state of Georgia determined that they didn't like the composition of the panel, and they basically were saying that the people who were not selected, who were removed from the panel, were done so without a racially neutral reason. And so that's an incorrect way to get rid of potential jurors. You have to show why it is race neutral and why there is not a racial component to it. And that's exactly what the judge has ruled today.
That he had no problem with the process of them striking the jurors.
That's right. And those individual jurors were going through, when it happens in front of the court deals with it right then. It's not done later.
So talk about that process. What's been going on since that initial jury panel was selected? How were they working through getting us down to this final jury?
Well, they ask specific questions, and if the questions indicate that the individual is fair, hasn't formulated an opinion typically, and can abide by the law, they are valid to sit on the panel. And it's random. So the first 12 people would be your panel if there was not a problem with somebody on that panel. If there's a problem with somebody on those 12, then they replace that person and they ask questions again. So ultimately, the search is for a panel that is fair and will render a decision based on the evidence itself and the credibility of the witnesses.
And quickly, next steps.
Next step, we're going to have opening statements by both the prosecution first and then the defense attorney, but that will only happen after the panel is actually seated. And although the judge has made a ruling today about the panel, that may not stand. It depends on what the state wants to try to do now.
Because they could take this to court.
Well, they
and have a
might be
separate
able to
trial.
appeal it. Georgia law is a little different than Florida law.
All right, Dale, thank you so much for your perspective, and Dale will be with us throughout this trial. You can find all of our Ahmaud Arbery stories under the action button. Again, count on Action News Jax to be inside the courtroom throughout the trial. We're also streaming it live for you on actionnewsjax.com and our mobile app. And please follow Kristen Rary on Twitter.